Hello, welcome to episode 5 of the Dice Throne podcast. We have very exciting news today. Today we actually have visuals. There are multiple reasons why we don't usually have visuals. First off, this is a podcast and it's supposed to be audio only. Another reason is that it's kind of difficult to do those visuals, and also because for some characters it could potentially violate copyright law. But thankfully, we are talking about custom characters, so we are able to provide visuals today. And by visuals, I just mean a bunch of tabs in Microsoft Edge that I'm going to be switching through. We are very unprofessional here. So today I am with JD. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Nice to chat.
Yep. So today we're talking about a custom season I made. So it's just 8 characters. The reason we're talking about that is because normally when we bring people into the podcast, they are experienced Dice Throne players. I have not brought an experienced Dice Throne player to this podcast.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So I have brought an experienced. I've brought an experienced player in the game that the source material is from for these characters. So he's yeah.
I play obsessively. I think would be
Yeah.
a good way to put
So
it.
the season is based off a series of digital card games called Meteorfall. JD has played the second game, and he is one of the best players in the world at it. I can't even get close. I don't even get close to beating him.
I have played it enough. I think would be a good way to put it.
I think he sent me a screenshot, or it was like 300 hours.
Oh no, it's I'm approaching 600 now. Yeah, I think it's at 570. Yeah.
Anyway, so what is Meteorfall? I have to have my mouse up here. It's gonna be a pain. No, there. So Meteorfall, Crumit's Tale is a card-based dungeon crawler. I had Eric make this for me in like 7 minutes.
Eric being the dev. Right?
Yep. Yeah, Eric is the lead dev and the programmer at Slothworks. So it's if you've played games like Slay the Spire, Meteorfall Crumit's Tale is nothing like those games. The game, each run takes place over a series of dungeons, and each dungeon, your personal deck is mixed in with the deck of monsters, and then dealt out in a 3x3 grid, and you have to kill the monsters to be able to use your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty hard, especially considering you can't bring over prior experience with other deck builders like Slay the Spire, because the game is just so different. For example, the concept of deck bloat is non-existent here, because you don't cycle through your deck. There is no reason to not have a full deck of cards at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a link down there, crewmitstale.com, if you'd like to visit that site. It's available on Steam, iOS, and Android. The characters that I'm about to show you actually released at the exact same time as the iOS and Android release. We were planning for it to release the day after at noon, but Eric accidentally hit the release button too early. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about the characters while I minimize this. I did get the dimensions for the first 2 cards, and then the next 20 aren't the same, so I have to zoom in and out. Alrighty, so again, there are 8 characters. There are 4 heroes and 4 bosses. I did not include all of the heroes, so no Moldorf, just so it's an even amount. So first we've got Bruno. JD, what's Bruno like in Meteorfall?
Bruno is probably recommended to be the first character you play as.
And the only character you can play as first.
Oh yeah, that's probably why. So the intention is very much forced upon you, and what he basically teaches the player is how to use equipment. Bruno has a lot of armor and weapons, which can either reduce damage he's receiving or increase the damage that he deals out. And the use of Bruno is the efficient use of all of his equipment to be able to survive and kill all the enemies.
Yep. He focuses on a lot of just being able to survive fights long enough, whereas other characters try to quote-unquote cheese fights by one-shotting the enemies.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yep. He can actually survive fights for multiple turns, and he usually ends up killing bosses that way. by just outlasting them. For this reason, I decided for his Dice Throne representation for him to be a very defensive character. He focuses on straight up blocking damage. He has difficulty preventing. He's very tactician like. He doesn't have a good ability to prevent all the damage, but he can prevent a lot of it. If he does prevent all of it, as you can see with this passive here, all of the hero passives are just lines from Krumit, the shopkeeper. So,
which I love.
Yep. So when you are attacked and take 0 damage as a result of the attack, inflict parry on the attacker at the end of the roll phase. This is based off a gimmick in Krumit's Tale. If you completely block an enemy's attack, you parry them, and they're stunned for a turn.
That was something which I neglected to mention as well about Bruno. I think he's pretty much the introduction to parries as well, which are a major component of the game.
Yep. So what does parry do? It's definitely not. It definitely does not inflict stun. As per Dice Throne convention, you are not allowed to inflict stun on a player on their own turn. It just doesn't work.
Yep, that makes sense.
Because stun prevents you from doing anything.
Yeah. So in Krumit's Tale, it would inflict stun, stops the opponent from doing anything for a turn. But here,
doesn't work here.
Something similar.
Yep. It's still pretty mean though. When a player with parry begins their offensive roll phase, the player who inflicted parry sets all 5 dice as the player's first roll attempt, and then they lose their second one. So,
which is crippling.
Yes, because if you can imagine, every character in the game has some specific role in which they whiff. They don't have any ability on their board. Even if their board is fully upgraded, every character has a setup like that. Or, if not whiff, get at least the best attack they can do is like 5 damage. So this is basically, you have one chance to get out of a whiff, because anyone who's playing Bruno Smart will just set their dice in such a way where they're not even close to anything.
Absolutely.
So they just get one roll, and if you're playing as like a paladin, that is very difficult to deal with, because paladin is notoriously hard to roll for. And then you can also see brass defense here. This is basically just half a protect. It prevents half the damage if you roll a 1 to 3. This is actually so. So the difference in terms of probability for protect, you can use 1 to 100% of the time, prevent half the damage. You can use brass defense twice. If you do, you have a 25% chance of preventing nothing. You have a 50% chance of preventing half the damage, and you have a 25% chance of preventing half the damage twice, or you're preventing all the damage. So yeah, you can also see retaliate. So he does have a lot of focus on doing more damage back to you than you're dealing to him. He's quite introductory. I think I put him down as a complexity 1. Maybe?
I can check that. Was he 3?
No, I think he was either 1 or 2. I think I put him as 2.
Oh yeah, he's 1. He is 1. I
Okay.
can look that up for you.
Yep. Alrighty, so that is Bruno. Now we're going to move on to my personal favorite character in terms of how they actually turned out in the set, and that is Greybeard.
Yep,
We're actually going to show off the leaflet first because it's the most important part of his entire set.
You have definitely inflicted Greybeard on me in a game as well.
He hits hard.
He has. He's really cool.
He is a miniature pyromancer. He has almost no defense whatsoever. The only big difference is that all the damage he does is outside of the roll phase, which is crippling for a lot of characters. Sometimes Greybeard will get to cast a spell. When he does, he rolls 2 spell dice, and then he consults this little spell book to determine what he's actually going to cast. If he rolls doubles, he gets to cast that spell twice. So, for example, if I rolled a 1 and a 5, I could either do Winter Winds. By the way, this is based off of the dice anatomy in like how the dice usually work in another deck building roguelike, Dicey Dungeons. So Winter Winds, inflict freeze on an opponent, then deal 3 damage to that opponent. Freeze is down here, just increases the next instance of damage by 1. I set Discord to do not disturb, I swear. Or I could teleport to heal 4. If I rolled double 6s, I would do double meditate, and then I would get 4 spell mastery, but the stack limit is only 3. So that's basically how spells work. It seems really complicated, but it's really quick. You just roll 2 dice, pick one of them, and then you do the thing. Spell Mastery heavily increases the complexity because it allows you to spend one to tip one of your spell dice, increasing it by one or decreasing it by one. Which means you have a lot more options if you have even one Spell Mastery. So if you can imagine, Greybeard's whole strategy is off casting a spell, using Spell Mastery to create double 3s and then doing Disintegrate for 10 damage. And he hasn't even began his offensive roll phase yet. Very powerful. However, pretty much everything else about Greybeard is awful. So the one downside to Greybeard spellcasting, as you can see by his passive over here, I'm going to change the name later. We figured out that I misheard the crewmate line for there. During his income phase, Greybeard may choose to cast a spell instead of drawing a card. So that means that if you want to cast a spell every turn, you can, but you're also not drawing cards, which is very bad. So Greybeard has to balance whether he wants a card or a spell cast. Usually, as you approach the end of the game, he definitely is going to cast a spell every turn, because that's the main way he does damage. And then, as you can see, pretty much everything else about Greybeard is awful. You've got Poke, which is under average damage. Average is 468.
I see.
For this. The average is either 468 or 567. Those are both on average.
468, 467. Mm-hmm.
And then you've got explosive runes here. This is basically just a combustion, but it doesn't it doesn't hit very hard against some characters. Like you can imagine trying to do this against the paladin. You've also got Lucky Ace, which is just even more control for spell dice. But it does almost no damage. This does almost no damage. It does inflict burn, though, which is always nice.
Even his ultimate not doing loads. Oof.
Yeah. Usually a lot of ultimates are just like I throw everything on you at once and do exactly 10 damage. His defense is also awful. I'm not going to show it, but it's just not great. It's situational. It only works. It's not almost guaranteed to do something like the Pyromancers. It just has a chance of doing something good. But it can't prevent damage. So again, Greybeard has one thing that he's good at, and that's damage outside of the roll phase. Everything else he's awful at.
It still hurt a lot.
Yes, it hurt. He's still very offensive.
I can't even remember. Who was I when you were Greybeard against me?
Cardoso. You were Cardoso.
I was Cardoso.
I think. Cardoso is also decently offensive, so that was a fast game.
It was quick. You're right.
Alrighty. We'll get to Cardoso later. This is one that next up is one I haven't shown JD yet. It is Mischief. I forgot to ask. JD, how's Greybeard like in Crewmate's Tale?
So yeah, he uses a lot of abilities, which are it's the other kind of tile aside from equipment. I would describe them as, and so he can use a lot of elemental effects using these spells that he casts, either burn or freeze. And Greybeard, he specializes. In fact, it's really quite thematic with him doing damage outside of the roll phase in Dice Throne, because in Crewmate's Tale he does a lot of damage outside of the actual attacking an enemy phase. So one thing which I really like about these characters that PK has designed is they really fit the theme of the characters from Crewmate's Tale. That's probably my favorite thing about these. They just fit so well. So that makes me smile.
Yep, so Greybeard is mostly focused on indirect damage. If you actually have played Crewmate's Tale, you may know of an extra mutation you can play. It's called Archmage, and it basically just shows off Greybeard in like a best case scenario for him, because by the time you're at the final dungeon, you're just blowing everything up without thought.
Without thought.
I mean, when you're optimizing for score, sure, you have to think a little. Like when you're trying to win a daily for the 7th time in a row.
Oh, that's my next goal. My record is 6th.
He's won 6 dailies in a row.
Twice. I've done that twice.
Yep.
Anyways, not about me.
Yep. I mean, it is kind of about you. I'm on
Yeah.
every episode, so you guys are
I
bored
try
of me
not to
by now.
sound quite so show offy. That's all. That's like the entirety of my uh, my successes.
Also, Monster Train and
uh, yeah, Monster
the
Train is
games
another one.
JD has beaten me, and I can't count on one hand.
No, you can. Four.
For
Oh, you
anyway,
destroy me in Dice Throne.
yep.
I
I mean,
think
you've never played the game, so I had a slight advantage.
I'm getting a
Anyway,
hold of this. Starting next month, I'm getting a hold of Dice Throne.
um, so next up we've got Mischief. JD, how is Mischief in Kermit's Tale? Aside from the whole thief
Mischief is
robbers thing.
probably the. Oh yeah, yeah. We won't go into that. I'll take ages. Mischief has pretty much everything revolving around stealth for Mischief. So whenever there is an enemy on the grid that is the only enemy on the grid, as in it's not with anything else on that on that same row, whenever Mischief enters that fight, they will have stealth, which deals bonus damage against this enemy. Many enemies will be killed in one shot using Mischief. However, after that initial hit, she is extremely weak. So I consider her to be probably the most difficult to use in terms of planning ahead.
Also the most
Because
abusable.
sorry.
Also the most abusable if you can figure her out.
Oh yeah, if you can figure her out. I mean, she can do stabs. She can inflict poison on enemies as well, which is extremely powerful.
Yep.
But in terms of when she's actually directly attacking, it's really tricky to make sure everything is lining up, because as soon as you get one enemy dropping into the wrong spot, it absolutely stunts anything that she can do. So she requires a lot of very careful planning, but it's also quite cathartic to, kill enemies in one hit if you make it powerful enough.
Yep. So we're actually gonna just quick sidetrack about Kermit's Tale. JD actually found an infinite with Mischief. What was it? 2 counterfeits and a lucky ace.
Yeah, either 2 counterfeits and a lucky ace, or 2 lucky aces and a counterfeit. This has been removed from the daily, since you won't find any lucky aces in the daily anymore.
Because it allows you to get an infinite score.
Yeah. The only thing stopping you from getting an infinite score is just time itself. So the longer you end up, just what lucky ace and counterfeit can do to each other is just infinitely duplicate. And eventually, I think I spent about 6 hours on this one, and I ended up with 717 gold and 1,717 cards in the deck. It was breaking all of the displays, so the game hadn't quite been anticipated to say that amount of gold or that amount of cards in the deck, so it was glitching out the display a little bit. I spent entirely too long doing it, but it was worth it just for the screenshot I now have.
Of like 20,000 points.
Yeah, it was in the 16,000. Although that was back when there was a glitch in Crewman Style anyway. It didn't take leftover gold back then, so that was purely just gems.
Yep.
Or
He should have way more. More of the story. He should have way more than that.
Would have had to.
Yep.
It would have probably been about 20,000. Yeah. But thankfully you can't. Well, I think there was one infinite, which I think as I pointed out last week, which is really unlikely for everything to come together for it. But in general, thankfully, infinites aren't really possible during daily runs anymore.
Yep.
Which is how I like it.
But Mischief is still very usable because she has a lot of things revolving around gold, and gold is worth points at the end of the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thieves' Glove.
Yep. We're thinking about Thieves' Glove with Glovers.
A Thieves' Glove with Glovers, or with Chill as well. If Glover's on there, you can still use Thieves' Glove to a strong degree with other enemies. But anyway. Yeah, she's tricky.
Yep. So this interpretation of Mischief is extremely hard to control.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. How hard something is to control is kind of undefined in Dice Throne. In a lot of other games, you're actually on a board, and like this attack hits 1 space in front of you. This attack hits 3 spaces in front of you. In which case, it's pretty hard to make something hard to control. They're just flying. They're just flying around the board, and making it difficult for you to hit anything. For this one, Mischief has 6 attacks that are awful and 2 attacks that are extremely overpowered.
I see.
So the passive here, when you target the player with the least health with an attack, gains stealth. This is mostly a King of the Hill thing, because it really destroys your normal thinking of how to play King of the Hill. But in a 1v1 game, it just basically says stay ahead of your opponent at all times. Stealth is extremely powerful, and this is the only way to get it.
Oh, so there's a slippery slope if you can't, essentially.
Yep, and then if you're looking at the things here, all of these are way below average damage and are absolutely awful. This is like the worst basic attack in the entire game right now, including other customs. It's just horrendous. This does no damage. It does 2, 3, 4 damage. The average is, I think, 6, 7, 6, maybe. It's
5, 6,
4,
8,
6, 8.
Yeah.
4, 6, 8 plus a bonus effect because Mischief's dice anatomy is different.
Okay.
4, 6, 8 plus a bonus effect. If you include the add 2 damage, it becomes a 4, 5, 6, which is still way below average.
Still below average, even then.
If you add the stealth, I think you get a 7, 8, 9, which is probably slightly above average.
Better, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's stealth plus you're in the end game for your basic attack. So it's still pretty awful. Viper Sting doesn't do damage, inflicts poison sometimes. Every time you use it, it's less likely to work the next time.
Awful.
The discard piles are public information, though, so you're not going to use this knowing it's going to do nothing.
That's true.
Pickpocket is kind of bad. It's very Profiteer-like. And then Slay is also decently awful, but the sneak attack is really good. Actually, this is actually decently good, because sneak attack lets you roll a die and add that much to your damage. So that's doing anywhere between 11 damage to 16 damage.
Oh, I see.
Not bad. Plus the stealth, that would make it 19.
I
have a funny story.
Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, there's a character in Dice Throne. It's called the Vampire Lord. If you have, she uses a resource called Blood Power. If you have 4 blood power, you can spend them all, and you heal equal to the amount of damage you successfully deal. So if you do 7 damage to your opponent and you spend 4 blood power, you also heal 7.
Ooh.
I was playing against Johnny Sixes, who is a really good Dice Throne player, probably the best in the world. He was playing as the Vampire Lord. He rolled an ultimate with the Vampire Lord, bumped it up to 20 damage, and spent 4 blood power. So it's a 40-point swing. At that point, I was just dead, because I was playing the Tactician and just have no way to come back from that.
Ew.
Yep. So anyway, that reminded me of that, because you can get that up to like 19 damage. This board is just awful. It does nothing helpful, and you have no way of getting the opponent into a crazed state. This side, Small Straight does undefendable damage, but not much of it.
Not much.
It's going to do either 4 undefendable or 5 undefendable, which is it's pretty good, but it's not great at finishing off opponents. Look at this large straight, though.
Large straight,
This is broken.
That caught my eye.
Set their health to 20, so you're basically cutting the opponent's health in half to start the game.
Yeah, and you want to use that as early as possible to keep the stealth and keep it on the roll.
But obviously, once you use it, it basically becomes locked out, and it
essentially
nothing helpful for you again.
Just need that once. One die dodge.
Yep, this defensive is also pretty broken.
Yeah, seems it.
And then Plague Bringer, which is all right for a mini. I heard the phrase mini ultimate for that specific thing, which I've never heard before.
Mini ultimate.
Because you need 4 6s for this, and the ultimate is 5 6s.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yep, and by the way, all of these images here are courtesy of Eric.
Yeah.
And these quotes are courtesy of almost all of these are just straight from the game. And most of those are written by Danny. Some of them are from Some of them are from Journeys, in which case they were written by Eric, and then for the Greybeard one, I actually had to ask Danny for a custom quote because I couldn't find anything suitable enough.
Oh, oh,
I
bless him.
looked through all the abilities, all the items, and I couldn't find any Greybeard quote that was really fitting for a battle quote.
I love Danny. He's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. Alrighty. So next up we have Rose, which was mine and Eric's favorite character in theory. So how was Rose, JD?
So Rose in the game, she's very strange. She's got 2 starting perks, and depending on what abilities you use, she can switch between them. Much of her game plan revolves around these special tiles called curses. Curses do absolutely horrendous things to you.
Random things.
Yeah, random thing. Well, the curses, the way they appear is random. It can be one of, I believe there were 4 curses in the game. There might be 5. Oh, there were 5. My bad.
Radiation, silence, weakness, tongues, and greed.
Yeah. And yeah, they can absolutely mess up your plans. If you were looking to kill an enemy, then gain 1 gold so you can then pick up a particular tile that's on the board. If greed shows up, for example, which makes everything cost 1 more, you're then absolutely, your plans are messed up. So the way this ties into her starting perks is if she is chosen, which is the one she starts as, if you then heal beyond your own max HP, you can turn the curses into blessings, which are kind of the opposite of a curse. The curse turns into a positive effect. I might argue that the positive of those effects is not quite as strong as the negative of a curse, but it's still helpful to get those curses to go away. If you switch over to Queen, then she inflicts this thing called corruption on enemies. Every first attack she does against them, she would inflict 3 corruption, and what corruption does is you would then heal 3 once you kill the enemy, or whatever the corruption amount is, but then that causes a curse to take their place on the board. So in theory, what you're supposed to be doing with Rose is switching between creating curses and as Queen, and then turning back to Chosen and turning them into blessings. In practice, different things can end up happening instead, where you might be able to use some stuff in her deck which turns the curses into items you can use instead, or would otherwise get rid of them. There's a fair few different approaches you can take with Rose, but in general, I would say the big thing about her is you have to adapt on the fly based upon what shows up.
Yeah, Rose is just weird. Nobody really knows how to use her.
Still trying to figure it out.
Yep. And I mean, she's getting balance tweaked in like
that's right. Yeah.
days. You have to rethink everything all over again. So here Rose is a bit like the cursed pirate. You'll see. So we're on so this is the chosen side, very defensive. You've got a heal on your basic attack and then slightly below average damage. You've got a heal 3 here, and you add 3 damage if you have been stalling for long enough. And then there's a thing called blessing here. Not all of them are on this half of the board, but Rose has chosen has a lot of blessing gains. If you're attacked, you can spend a blessing to heal 2. The opponent is technically successfully dealing all the damage, but you are netting a very low amount of damage if you spend those blessings. There is a reason you might want to hang on to your blessings, though, which we'll see in a minute. You can get Blessing of Divinity here, which, for those familiar with with Dice Throne, you would know that Blessing of Divinity, for Blessing of Divinity, the first time you would die, you stay at 1 health instead. Which basically just gives you 1 more chance to hit the opponent before they kill you. Yeah, and then you've got a heal 2 here. And then you'll notice a lot of these roll requirements you are using light rolls. So Rose's Dice Anatomy is 3-1-1-1. So you've got 3 stabs and then a light, a shadow, and then an ace. So these are decently hard to roll.
Yeah, that's all.
And then here we've got 3 shadows, which is actually pretty hard to roll. I've got Renounce Light. You do 6 undefendable damage. then gain Curse, which is bad, and flip your hero board over. So what does flipping your hero board over do? It changes you to Queen.
Queen.
So Curse is bad. Basically, Blessing is whenever you are attacked, you can spend it to heal 2. Curse is whenever you attack, you spend it to take 2 damage. So while you're in Queen, you do a lot of damage. You're doing 6, 7, 8 here, which is way above average. Oh, it's 1 point above average, not way above average, but it's pretty good.
It's nice.
This is doing a bunch more damage now. You can also inflict curses sometimes. This also add 3 damage thing is more likely to happen now. You also notice that the roll requirements changed from lights to shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really change the odds of any of them happening. It's just thematic.
Which I adore.
Here, so you can. This is why you would want to hang on to your blessings. If you have a bunch of blessings, you can flip to Queen, then use Corrupting Touch. You remove all your blessings, and now instead of healing 2 health, you steal 2, which is better.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also do a bunch of damage, which is cool. Also, there's a new status effect here: Curse of Mortality. So again, Blessing of Divinity. The first time you would die, you stay at 1 health instead. Curse of Mortality is the exact opposite. So with Blessing of Divinity, first time you would die, you stay at 1 health instead. With Curse of Mortality, the first time you would stay at 1 health, you die instead. So
that makes me laugh.
Yep. You just immediately die the moment you're at 1 health. The reason why that's impactful is because curses can't actually kill you. They will just leave you at 1 health. But if you have Curse of Mortality, obviously it doesn't matter. If you have Blessing of Divinity and Curse of Mortality at any one point, they both are just immediately removed because they cancel each other out. In terms of the actual result you end up with. And then obviously here with 3 lights, you can renounce darkness and you can flip back over. So kind of Curse Pirate-like. Basically, you are just flipping back and forth, back and forth. I think it does a better job of requiring you to do that than Crumit's Tale does. Again, Rose is definitely getting tweaked in like 2 days. And that is going to be coming out soon. But right now, she doesn't really do a very good job at getting you to flip back and forth. I think this succeeds. I tested that against the dummy a couple times, and yeah, that's pretty much the only way you can win. Because on Blessing, on Chosen, you're doing pretty much no damage. And on Queen, you're killing yourself very quickly.
So it's about, yeah.
Yep. So those are the 4 heroes. So those characters are all based around making it more complex for the player. The 4 bosses, however, are based around making it more complex for the opponent.
I see.
Starting with, so basically, if you're playing a hero versus boss, whoever's playing as the hero is going to have two characters to deal with at once.
Yeah.
We weren't intending for that to be the case, but it just so happened that all the designs made it more complex for the opponent, so we decided to just go with it.
I love it.
So first we've got Wagyu. I didn't decide to grab his board because it's just a bunch of damage. Like 10 I'm talking like 11 damage on the regular type of damage.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're not going to be able for the bosses. I don't think JaeDy is going to be able to elaborate as much because they're just bosses.
They're just bosses. Although you do carry over the themes of their unique dungeons quite well. Yep. You've got the tranquilizers going on here, for example.
Yep.
And stupid from the bucket heads.
Yep. Yeah. Why don't you talk about the Wagyu in Crumit's Tale?
So Wagyu, he's one of the first. You can encounter one of 3 bosses as your first boss in the game, and Wagyu is one of those. And he makes the enemies in his dungeon do 1 more damage per attack. What also happens on that dungeon is you receive a bunch of tranquilizers, which is a type of tile which can turn an attack into just a turn whereby your opponent does nothing. So tranquilizers are there. Stupid, one of the enemies also in that dungeon and in other dungeons as well, automatically puts this tile called Stupid in your inventory.
And it's spelled like this.
And it's spelled like that. And a lot of the time, if you don't expect Stupid to show up, if you forget that that's what well, they're called bucket heads. They're the ones that leave stupid. If you forget that's what a bucket head does, you most certainly feel stupid, because chances are you have a full inventory and then you have to get rid of an item to make room for stupid. And it increases the cost of abilities, so it usually is just a huge annoyance. Blitz would be the other one. I can't remember the name of the enemies that have Blitz.
Gobloids.
Gobloids, that's
I mean,
right.
they all have Blitz, but
Yeah, a fair few do. But I would say that when you're in Wagu's dungeon, the three things that you will notice the most are tranquilizers, stupid, and blitz. You will notice those. So
yep.
I'm willing to bet that's why they're incorporated here.
Yep. So it's also very like offensive based. Basically, if you have decent enough offense, you can kill everything in the dungeon.
Yeah.
Because think about because all the enemies have blitz, but if you also have blitz, that gets prioritized over theirs, and you still go first.
Mm-hmm.
Though I don't think only two of the characters can actually get blitz.
Yeah. Oh no, you technically, if you've got ghostly, any character can. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, in general, Mischief Blitz. Blitz is a strong mechanic for Mischief, and you can have other items for other characters. But yes.
So anyway, that is kind of what Wagu and Dice Throne is based about. Again, he does 11 damage on the regular, which hurts, so he kills you in 5 turns. That's very fast. Usually games take around 7 or 9 turns. So that's in theory is extremely overpowered. What makes him slightly less overpowered? It's not a hero setup; it's a boss setup. He puts 3 tranquilizers in the center of the play area. When Wagu attacks a player, that player can spend 2 CP, and if they do, they take a tranquilizer from the center of the play area, and if they do, no damage is received and no defense is made. So you basically can prevent all the damage from 3 of Wagu's attacks, each prevention costing 2 CP. Wagu was difficult to balance, especially because some characters are way better than getting CP at others.
Oh yeah, Ninja.
No, I'm thinking Shadow Thief.
Shadow Thief. Whichever one you mess me up with.
15 C, like the one character who's just very stingy with their CP and is constantly at 15.
Yeah, that hurt when you did that against me.
And then you've also got Stupid here, which is inflicted on Moss. You can either reduce the damage you're dealing by 1, or you take 2 damage at the end of the roll phase. At the end of the turn. Which can be pretty evil when Stupid gets inflicted during the opponent's defensive roll, and you have to immediately spend it to reduce the damage. And then Blitz. Blitz was almost a catastrophe. When a player with this token concludes their offensive roll phase with any ability other than their ultimate ability, that's important, opponents cannot play cards to modify the offensive roll when the ability activates or removes this token. So it prevents you from messing with the dice. So it's guaranteed to happen. That does not apply to ultimates because that is cruel and punishing, and Wagu's ultimate is insane. It literally, here's the text of the ultimate. Deal 20 damage.
Oh, okay, fair.
I mean, but like 20 damage is a lot. So that's why Blitz doesn't apply to ultimates, because then ultimates are just very broken for anyone that has Blitz.
Yep. Sounds right. I have to say as well, just the art, Wagu's face there just makes me laugh so much.
Actually, fun fact, we do not have static art of Wagu, so Eric had to just grab a shot of him.
Yeah, that's when you're trying to beat him up, and he's trying to do the same to you. That's essentially his war cry face. Yeah. Oh god.
Yeah. So interesting. He's also very short, so I guess it's kind of thematic because I don't have his legs. So next up, we have got Cardoso. He is there's also a tabletop simulator mod, which has some of these characters in. It's Bruno, Greybeard, and then Cardoso. So you can find that on the Steam Workshop. I'm also going to put the link to the Google Drive of all these characters in the description. And then I might also pin a comment as well. Who knows? So Cardoso was the last boss added to Krumit's Tale. And
That's right. Yeah, he was.
Like?
I'm going to go off on a slight tangent here. In the crewmate server, it was asked, what are your 3 least favorite dungeons? And I'll tell you what, I didn't put Cardoso's it's Sanguine Grotto, isn't it? Is that correct?
Cardozo's Sanguine Grotto.
Oh, thank goodness, because I've tend to get them mixed up before. Cardoso's Sanguine Grotto was not in the top 3 that I'd done, but then later on that day, the Sanguine Grotto showed up, and I thought to myself, this might be actually one of my least favorite. Cardoso himself, he is able to heal quite substantially when you're attacking him, and it's a huge problem. One thing you can do to stop that is you can pick up these special tiles that fall during his dungeon called Toxic Bloods, and in fact, the way you pick them up is you acquire a tile which has a toxic blood in the same row that would also go into your inventory. That can mess you up. If you want to pick up a tile you don't want to pick up a toxic blood, then you've got a dilemma. And what toxic blood does is every instance in which you yourself want to heal, you will heal for 1 less. Now, it also means that Cardoso is unable to heal whilst you're fighting him. So in general, what you want to try and do is to pick up one of the toxic bloods just before you're going to fight him, and otherwise try and leave them be or pick them up and get rid of them whilst you've still got room in your inventory to pick up 2 things and then get rid of the toxic blood. It also costs, I believe, 1 health to get rid of them. In short, I would say that his dungeon is massively disruptive. He's got 1 enemy that also only appears in his dungeon, which inflicts a lot of poison on the player. And they're really quite disruptive as well. Cardoso is, I would say, his dungeon is one of the trickiest to deal with.
By the way, that enemy that you were talking about, the Wasteland Thug, they used to deal damage, but then I suggested to Eric that they were changed so that they do deal a bit of damage.
Oh, wait, so this is your fault.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Actually, Toxic Blood used to prevent you from healing at all. So there's...
yeah, you're right. And I believe they used to cost 2 to get rid of as well.
No, maybe.
I think they might have. I could be making that up, but I think I did.
Yeah. I'm also still mad at Eric for nerfing Moldorf, so that makes 2 of us.
Well, you haven't put him in Dice Throne, so...
I actually might do Varfa. Once Varfa hits Kermit's Tail, I might also just add a 9th one in, just because why not?
I don't know all that much about Varfa yet.
My problem with Varfa is that there's already like a ranger huntress character in Dice Throne, so but we'll see, it might happen. Anyway, Cardoso here, he's got a passive here. These are not crewmate lines, because of, these are bosses. At the conclusion of each of your roll phases, inflict toxic blood on all opponents that lost at least 1 health during that roll phase. So, he inflicts a lot of toxic blood. What does toxic blood do? First off, just a quick note, he has a lot of heals here. He's got a heal here, a heal here, a heal here sometimes. He's got a lot more on the other board. So what does toxic blood do? It's basically a targeted. You take 2 more damage whenever you're attacked, which hurts because stack limit 3. And then... Also, if Cardoso attacks you, he can't heal. So there's an upside and a downside. And again, there's a lot of healing here. This one doesn't actually get prevented because it's an ultimate. But yeah, so it's a lot of thinking about, because you also have to pay 2 health if you want to remove it. I guess you could also remove it with a card or whatnot, but so there's a lot of thinking about how much toxic blood you want to have at any one point. There's also Wound here, which is just brutal. He can only inflict it every once in a while. And whenever you play it, if you have a wound, and you play a card, try to play a card during your own turn, you have to pay 1 more CP for it. And it does not go away until you conclude your offensive roll phase with anything that's not an attack. Which hurts really hard for characters that have nothing but attacks. So against the Pyromancer, that hurts them really hard. Against the Shadow Thief, not so much. The Shadow Thief is a lot, for background for JaeDy. The Shadow Thief is a lot of things that are not attacks because he's a turtle.
It's total. Lots of inflicting of tokens that do the damage and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yep.
I see.
Um, so that is Cardozo. He was really hard to balance. I had a game with him where I was playing as Cardozo. I got
Wow.
three ultimates, and the opponent got two whiffs, and I barely won. And I was like, okay, this is way underpowered. This needs to be fixed. So I think I bumped up his damage a bit. I also included the pay 2 health thing. You used to be able to remove this for free, but I changed it. And he's still probably a little underpowered, but he's fun. He's also extremely brutal against the right opponents because he does a lot of damage.
Good old
As you
character
approach
counters
the
and
end game, and
mashups.
the toxic blood is staying on players. Also, note that his ultimate does collateral damage to all opponents, so if you're playing a 5-player game, all of your opponents are getting toxic blood. Alrighty. Next up, we have got Bartholomew, or as we affectionately call him, Barthy.
Barthy, love him.
So, what is Barthy like?
So yeah, I might actually go so far to say the most unique in how you have to deal with him in
Yep.
Kumit's Tale. He starts off with 70 HP. As soon as you knock him down to 60 or below, and then 40 or below, and then 20 or below, each of those times he immediately receives 3 burn and goes back into the deck. I don't think we said just yet when we were talking about burn before. Burn is every single time they move down a row on the grid, they take that burn amount of damage, and then the burn count is reduced by 1. So, what burn also does for Barthy, and Barthy only, is increase his amount of damage by that burn count. So what you find ends up happening is initially at first you can block his attacks somewhat well, and then he'll go back up into the deck. He might spend ages up there, and he's a nightmare to deal with if he's right at the very end, because it's difficult to make him take burn damage when he just immediately goes to the bottom and doesn't take any burn amount. In any case, you can do damage to him and block fairly well early on, but what you find you have to do towards the end is not get hit by him once, because he can one-hit kill you, because he has accumulated so much burn by that point that his attacks just are way too powerful. The way I usually find myself trying to deal with him is early on, you need to get him to 60 health or below. I try and get him as far beyond 60 health in one big smack as I can. So if you knock him down to just 50, you might then to be able to knock him below the 40 threshold and then below the 20 threshold.
And then at that point, you can just
attack you.
Take advantage of the burn, and he dies himself.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. He has so much burn at that point that he burns out essentially. Yep. So I would say apart from that, I think his dungeon is pretty much standard stuff. A lot really depends on when Bartholomew shows up. He can be a nightmare. He can be a nightmare towards the end, and you really need to make use of the best kind of tiles that you have for his purpose in your deck, whatever they may be.
Bartholomew is a very token boss fight in Journeys as well.
Oh, is he?
Yep. A lot of fire-based stuff, as you can probably imagine.
Oh, that sounds, yeah.
He does a thing where he does a bunch of damage to you, but then he also buffs all your fire attacks. So if you're playing as Greybeard, and specifically Greybeard, you have an advantage over him.
I see. It's a fireboy.
Anyway, look at all these attacks. These are all awful. 3, 4, 5. That's below. 1 undefendable damage, and also a burn on yourself. Deal 1 damage. Deal 8 damage. I guess this inflicts stun, but whatever. So these are all really bad, and of course the other half of the board is even worse. But look at the passive, though.
Yeah, there it is.
This is when your health is reduced below a multiple of 10, inflict burn on yourself and gain rage. This applies even when attacked with an ultimate ability. So that means Bartholomew is constantly on fire. But what does rage do? Rage is extremely broken. When a player with rage concludes their offensive roll phase with an attack, they add 1 to the total damage for all of their attacks for the rest of the game. This token may not be removed or transferred by any means. Stack limit 99.
Yep.
I was going to put infinity there, but I forgot that to write infinity, you can just take an 8 and and rotate it 90 degrees.
Imagine selling this and
Also,
you get 99 rage tokens.
uh, um, yeah, and also because I don't think the 8 is like perfectly top-down symmetrical with this font. Whatever.
I see.
So yeah, basically, this also includes when you're reduced below 50 health. So again, you're constantly on fire, but every once in a while you get more and more powerful, and by the end of the game, these are doing way above average damage, and they hurt really hard. This also isn't as bad as it looks because you're constantly on fire.
And again, this is just like how he is in Kumit's Tale.
Yeah.
He does the same kind of things. I love that about Dice Throne.
Yes.
About
it's surprisingly translatable. So
yeah,
it's easy to translate other things to Dice Throne, but I found it's hard to translate Dice Throne to other things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I guess a lot of the characters are just archetypes, so you could also do that, but it's hard to like directly translate them to other fighting games.
Makes sense.
Alrighty, so now we've got the last character. I don't think I've shown JD this one yet. Of course, he's looking it up right now that I've said that.
I did have a quick browse earlier.
It is the final boss of Meteorfall Journeys, the final boss of Primit's Tale, the Uberleak.
Here he is.
So first, I'm going to say this before asking JD how the Uberleak works in Primit's Tale. He appears in every run. He is always the final boss in every run.
Mm-hmm.
The final dungeon is always his Necropolis.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
What's the Uberleak like? How painful is he?
All right. I might end up saying Uberlich because that's how I've always said it. I freely admit I am wrong. Freely admit that.
Actually, is Uberlich.
You can still say whatever you like. I'm fine with.
Slothworks is nice. They accept multiple pronunciations. The official pronunciation for Krumit is actually Krumit. But
that's a good point. Yeah, it's Krumit, which means onion in Slavic language. Is that right?
Yeah. Evgeny came up with that one.
Yeah, but we say Krumit just because that's.
I think it fits the style of the game more.
It does.
Anyway.
So yeah, fighting the Uberlich. Weirdly, because he appears at every single run, it's funny how many different strategies there are that you need and that you can employ in order to take him down. The big thing, though, is that you need to have a strategy of some form. You can, if you're not thinking about the Uberlich early on, you can very much find yourself at the end of the game and really struggling to be able to deal with him. One of the big things that he does is he inflicts. He forces you to take a tile called Doom with a bunch of his attacks, not to mention the fact that his attacks themselves are really powerful. Yep. But if you...
He also has 70 health, which is a lot.
Yeah, 70 health is a whole bunch. I think only one other boss can have more.
He is tied for the second most health of any creature in the entire game.
Yep, absolutely is.
Elmer has the most health, but that's also his gimmick, and then he's tied with Barthy.
Yep, and you can methods that you can have Elmer reduced to below 70 anyway. Yep. With the Uberlich, he's just an absolute tank. He can really dish it out, and he can mess up your inventory as well. It's pretty much unavoidable. His first attack will force you to take a Doom tile. Now, Doom will, for me, one of the most painful things is that it immediately just takes up an inventory slot. You must put it somewhere, and then it costs 3 to get rid of that tile again, which is further damage to yourself. However, if you let it pile up and you end up with 4 Dooms in a row, then you're dead. You're dead immediately, which incidentally is the end of first ever run I ever had. Was filling up with Doom. I didn't know you could get rid of those tiles early on before.
The end of my first run was at Wagyu because my very first run was at Wagyu because I wasn't aware you could get rid of stupid. That really made me feel stupid.
It's fine. It's just unwise as of that point. Now you are wise. You see, you just find out. You can get
after like 100 runs and JD's just. I beat the Uberleak on new game +8 on my 7th try.
Oh goodness, yeah, he's worse. He's worse on New Game +8. He's got 84 health, I believe. No, 85 he has. In any case, yeah, you need to have a strategy to fight him. That strategy can be as Mischief, doing whatever you can to damage him without actually attacking him. As Bruno, it can be making sure you have a bunch of armor, which gives you six or more block, because that covers everything that he can do. But the more you fight him, the more you begin to realize there's stuff that you can do to deal with him. But my goodness, you need to be prepared for that, because
Well, you would only need 5 for Bruno because you can stun him out of Shadow Storm.
stun him out of Shadow.
It's the 8 damage Doom.
Oh yeah, with 5. Yeah, you're right.
So he has an attack called Meteorfall in both games. In Kermit's Tail, it does 5 damage twice, which is an auto kill if you don't have some form of defense for it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep, because your starting health is 10, so unless you have more max health or some way to block it, it kills you. If you can parry that, though, he's stunned, and he doesn't get to do his most powerful attack, which is 8 damage in a Doom. And then his next turn is also a recharge.
Yeah, and
get 3 free turns on him.
Yeah, you can. And I always find one good thing that you can do if you don't have enough to deal with him in one shot is when he's recharging on that final thing, that's a good opportunity to run away and then pick up more stuff in your inventory.
Very
good.
Yeah, we can one shot.
Yeah, precisely.
Run away.
But yeah, I would say, especially with Bruno, the best thing you can do is be able to block 5. For some reason, there wasn't. Oh, I said 6 because there isn't a tile that just lets you block 5. But yeah, you can combine tiles, I suppose. Yeah.
We have Lore Town. Anyway.
Yeah.
So his passive is called Meteorfall. By the way, just going to talk about Journeys because JD hasn't played that. He has a Doom counter. If it hits 5, his attacks start doing insane amounts of damage. It's not an auto kill, but you're practically dead. No, he's got, I think, 200 health. You can do a lot of damage in Journeys. He's got a card called Meteorfall. It's upgraded to level 3. There is no Meteorfall level 1 or Meteorfall level 2 in Journeys. He's the only character that can get the card. If you do 16 or more damage to him, nothing happens. If you don't, he summons a meteor. I'm not exactly sure what happens when he summons a meteor. I'm of the firm agreement that the Uber Leak in Journeys is a pushover.
Okay, fair.
I mean, then again, I run Stab Eviscerate decks with Mischief, so maybe I'm just cheesing the game too much. I should actually try to be good at it. Alrighty, so at first glance, you'll notice that pretty much everything here revolves around the fall dial. This reduces it by 1. 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 This reduces it to 1. So what is up with fall dial? Also, you'll notice that he has difficulty doing damage in general.
Yeah.
So what's up with the fall dial? Let's look at his leaflet. Place the fall dial near this part of your leaflet. I'm reading the top part here. If at any point your fall dial reads 0, it starts at 8. The Meteorfall returns. All opposing players are immediately eliminated from the game. So if his fall dial hits 0, he automatically wins. This is also basically the entire reason why this is not official. This whole set is not like officially endorsed or anything, because the developer, one of the code designers, has spoken against abilities that allow you to automatically win the game.
I see. Cool.
They're probably never going to be official effects, and there's going to be no official effect that allows you to auto win.
I can understand that.
Yep.
Although, no, you still can end up with. It depends on how it's implemented, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So the Uber Leak changes the game at a fundamental level. He can't kill the opponent by reducing their health to 0. He just doesn't do enough damage, and he doesn't have enough defense to hold him up. Instead, he just wants to get his fall down to 0 as quickly as possible. And he does that by either getting lucky or by the opponent not paying attention. He's got Doom here. Stack limit 3. If you would get a 4th, they all explode. The Uber Leak heals 5 and reduces his fall dial by 2, and they all go away. So that's you not paying attention and realizing that he can get a 4th Doom on you. Megaton he also has a thing called Megaton. JD didn't talk about this. The Uber Leak's dungeon.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about his dungeon. Yeah.
Also has a bunch of Megatons, and the reason why I forgot about them is because they're pretty much inconsequential.
They can still mess you up. I
guess depending on what deck you're running, they can
be really in the way. But yeah.
So these megatons are not inconsequential. The Uberly gains megatons, and he can pass them to opponents. If you have a megaton, you can discard a card, and if you do, it goes away. If you play or sell a card before you go ahead and get rid of it, it blows up, you take damage, and the Uberleak's fall dial is reduced. And megatons, because their unique status effects cannot be removed or transferred by any means except those. So yeah, and there's a very mean thing you can do with megatons where you wait for the opponent to play a card, and then in response to that play, pass a megaton to them so it immediately explodes.
Oh.
So again, if you're not paying attention, you can really put you in a hard situation.
Ooh, that's so cool.
Yep. So that
I noticed just how absolutely painful his ultimate is.
Yes, this is a very weird ultimate because you sometimes don't even want to use it. Reduce your health to 1.
Oh, your health to 1. I didn't notice that first
So
bit.
it better be something good. Reduce your fall dial to 1, then deal 6 damage. He has a passive, which doesn't apply to his ultimate ability. So he has to just pray that the opponent isn't paying attention and doesn't automatically go ahead and kill him. So he gets a chance to reduce his dial. I actually forget what the Uberleak's defensive is, but I don't think it can reduce the fall dial. Can you look it up, JaeDy?
His defenses, yep, sure. Give me a short moment. I'll be able to then report for you.
I'm not. I can't look at the time, so I don't know how long we've been talking.
His defense, nothing to do with the fall dial. You 1 die. His defense is called Evil Laugh. On minion, deal 2 damage. On rune, inflict doom. On meteor, gain megaton.
Okay, so I guess he could reduce the fall dial if the doom causes if the doom explodes.
That's a good.
I also guess the megaton could as well, but yeah, not good defense. He just doesn't have. He just can't reduce the opponent's health to 0. He has to cheese it.
So it's all about killing him as fast as possible, really.
And that causes the game to change on a fundamental level. And you're basically playing an entirely different game if the Uberleak is at the table.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm undecided as to whether or not I like to play as him. He's also a difficulty 6.
Yeah.
So bosses aren't measured in complexity; they're measured in difficulty, and that's how hard it is. That's how complex it is to play against them. Instead of playing as them. So Waku is, I think, a difficulty 2. CARDOSO is a 5. Barthy is a 3, and the Uberleak is a 6.
Wagyu 1, Bartholomew 3, CARDOSO 5, Uberleak 6.
Okay, Wagu's a 1.
Yeah.
I think that should be. Honestly, that might end up being a 2, but
work in progress, guys.
Yep. Yeah, and if you have like balance concerns, we are. I'm still making balance changes to all of this, and again, I might drop a 9th character. We'll see.
Ooh.
I intentionally tried to keep this as much of a secret as possible, because I wanted it to come out of nowhere. Because the custom community in Dice Throne is very underdeveloped. There aren't many customs out there for you to try out.
That seems like a shame.
Yes, I agree. There's so much strategy in a singular character. I think like early 2021, it's going to be the retail release of 2 new characters, and I'm spending multiple months just experimenting with them. There's one one of them is already in Tabletop Simulator, so I think I've got her figured out. But the other one is just going to take a while.
It's new stuff. Like coming into Dice Throne as a new player, I find, and seeing these custom characters immediately like this, I really love it about a game when you can have fundamentally the same game, but also fundamentally a different thing going on. And the room that Dice Throne has for different characters with different effects is something that I find absolutely exciting and beautiful. I love it. So that's one of the greatest virtues that I feel like Dice Throne has. Then again, I might then just begin to say, once I play this some more, that the greatest virtue is the strategy and how gorgeous that is. But for the time being, just it strikes me how you can create new, unique, exciting things with the Dice Throne game itself as the wrap around for it all.
Yep. Yeah, and there is definitely. I think there should be a lot. As obviously as the game grows, there are going to be way. There's probably going to be more customs.
Really
Uh,
hope it does. Really want
Also,
it to.
considering the fact that there are some restrictions as to how you can publish, what customs you can actually publicly release.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just because they don't want to avoid seeing a custom and then subconsciously having a gimmick similar to that customs in a later set.
I mean, I'm not like I don't think the devs should just be like, yeah, everyone just custom it all in and everything. I just like how the game can have all that going on. There can be a separate side scene that plays with those for sure. Um, I just I just think it's gorgeous that it can. I understand the devs' point of view in that regard.
Yeah, get this back on the screen. Yeah, I do think there should be, and as I was saying to some people in the stream a bit earlier, I on the it's entirely separate from this. Once a lot of customs come out, I was thinking of just getting all the customs in a tabletop simulator, putting them in a bag, and then uploading that as a workshop mod. So we just have a bunch of customs for you to mess with. I
Awesome.
think it's like the play space that's available with these. I obviously made them, so there's a lot less thinking and experimenting I'm going to have to do
Mhm.
to really figure out these guys. But yeah, um, I definitely am not done figuring out some of these characters. Especially the Uber League. I'm not really sure where I stand with him on whether or not I enjoy him. I still haven't figured out Barthy because he didn't need much balancing, to be honest.
I can.
He was pretty balanced from the early draft. I actually like to just talking about some drafting. Whoops. What the early version of the characters used to be, Bruno parry used to prevent you from playing cards, and then it would go away at the end of your turn. We removed that because we didn't feel like it hurt enough to really be worthy of parry. Greybeard, he used to have a second deck of just spell cards, and you could either draw from that deck or from your standard deck. And this
Okay.
effects. I think here it's more obvious to see what the odds of you getting any one thing is, and I think it's
Making more dice. You can play around a little bit more
also
with the
because
tipping
it's
of
going to
that.
be an entirely different file just for that spell deck. It also saves you on paper, so be happy.
Yeah, I am happy.
Mischief used to be quite different, actually. Stab used to do like awful 2-3-4 damage, and then begin another offensive roll phase. And then we figured out that's not good.
No, that's because that's really frequent, mate. You can get that.
I was trying to go for having a stab eviscerate combo. It's like a tradition in Meteorfall games for Mischief to have a stab eviscerate combo. Actually, JD, once you inevitably start playing Meteorfall Journeys, I urge you to check out Stab Eviscerate.
All right.
It's hilarious. It's like my favorite deck in the entire thing.
It sounds like they synergize.
Eviscerate would do more damage for every offensive roll phase you've taken so far.
Oh, I see. It's difficulty with that, just counting roll phases.
It basically boils down the game to stab, 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 stab. Okay, now I'll eviscerate and you take 20 more damage. It's not fun.
Yeah, that's a bit broken.
Weirder, probably a bit more experimenting required. So I'm happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, there's a very obvious line that you need to take with Mischief. You need to keep ahead.
Yep. They're also around when I was working on rebalancing Mischief. Eric showed off because Eric is awesome with Photoshop. I was using GIMP. He's awesome with Photoshop, and he actually made this giant, elegant board. The problem is it's kind of awkward for me to try to edit things in Photoshop, so I just decided we'll just keep this format. It's probably easier to print it, and it takes way less time for me to draft a character in GIMP. Because for Photoshop, I have to go to a completely different device to use that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we kind of agreed on what Rose's style would be. I don't think there's like an early version of her.
That makes sense. That is Wagyu, the thing you have to go.
Wagyu, you used to be able to get tranquilizers for free, but then we realized that made him way underpowered, so we added the CP cost. He was still way underpowered, so he also buffed his damage. And
and now he's a mega smacky boy.
Cardoso, you used to be able to remove toxic blood without paying health. We changed that because it made him underpowered.
Yeah, yeah.
Bartholomew, again, we didn't really have to make many balancing changes to him.
I absolutely love how you've captured each of these characters and how they either play or how they play against you. I
Yep.
love how you've captured them as characters in Dice Throne.
Yeah, I think I do have an advantage over JD because I've played both Journeys and Crewmate's Tale for a decent amount of time.
Lucky enough. I'll, I'll I'll catch up.
Yep.
That's my goal.
Yep. Once you're done winning 7 dailies in a row. And by winning, I mean like first place.
Well, then my next goal will be 8, won't it?
First place on the world leaderboard. And then
we need more people playing it.
Jewel here, you used to give the opponent a free income phase, but we cut that because we think it's fun for the Uber League to seem really broken.
Oh yeah, that does fit him.
He seems just an absolute monster, but he's pretty balanced. We think
he's a monster. I would like to try out.
Yep. So I'm just gonna flash this again.
Everyone play this game, please.
Yes, everyone play this game.
I want more people playing it.
I think when it released, both JD and I updated our review, and I don't know about JD's review, but for mine, it's just ranting for like 1,000 characters about how good this game is.
Mine just became like an absolute gushing fest because my initial one was like, oh, this game, never have I had a game that's hooked me quite as much as this. And then when it was about to release, I was like, nah, for how I feel about this game. Like, that does not cut it. They just deserve all of the love that I can give them.
Yep. And they're currently working on so they're in Crewmate's Tale, there are 5 characters. Mm-hmm. Bruno, Greybeard, Mischief, Rose, and also Moldorf, which I didn't make a custom for. Poor Moldorf. I actually made a long time ago. I made a custom for Moldorf, which was absolutely not balanced and not fun.
It basically involved like minions eat up all the damage that they give, right? That's got to be it.
Yeah,
that has to be it.
A really funny story because when Moldorf first released, he was absolutely broken, and we were like, "This is really fun." I think Moldorf was the reason I got that hooked back onto the game because he's just so fun. And then Eric nerfed him twice, and now he's less fun.
No, he's great. He's still broken in dailies.
Oh, yep.
Blood money. If you remake,
you health to gain a gold. So if you have blood money and then something lets you restore health rapidly, you just heal blood money, blood money, blood money, blood money, heal blood money, blood. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
And you can use it an infinite amount of times. It's not very helpful when you're just playing casually, but.
No, it's absolutely like the biggest difference between if you're playing for school, if you're just playing casually. I think blood money is useless if you're playing just for survival or near enough that. But if you're going for school, it is single most the best tile, I think, across all the characters, I would say.
Yep.
Closely followed by Thief's Glove, but I think blood money is the best tile for that.
So there are 5 characters in the game right now. 6 on the way is paid DLC. And by paid, I mean like $2.
Just insta buying it.
Also, a thing that is going to happen is there's a daily challenge, and in the daily challenge, it constantly changes what hero you're playing as. Even if you have not paid for that 6th character, you can still play you can still play as them in the dailies, so you get a chance to like try them out.
I think that's like the best decision that Eric could have made. To resolve that, because I was like, what's going to happen? Are you going to end up with a disparity between leaderboards? But I think Eric's made spot on the right choice there.
Yep. Definitely a very consumer-friendly decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, that has been the 5th episode of the Dice Throne podcast.
I had a good time.
I don't have a clock next to me. I don't know how long we've been recording.
Whatever. It was a good time. That's what's important.
So that I hope you enjoyed. I will see you next time.
Play more Dice Throne, play more Crewmate's Tale, guys.
Yes, please play Crewmate's Tale. I would be surprised how many people I play tested this with, and they're like, "Oh, I have this game on my phone."
Oh,
and
awesome.
by this game, they meant Journeys, but
get Crewmate's Tale.
Also get this one.
Please, he deserves all of the love.
Yep. See ya.
You have a wonderful evening.